Thank you all for introducing yourselves. Okay, so outline of today's session, it mostly will be done within CodeHS, but the first thing that we'll do is talk about creating and bringing in your own content, and then we'll also discuss pulling material from CodeHS. So there are many ways that you can build your own lessons, and we'll talk about all of those today. So now I'm going to bring you into my CodeHS page. So this is my courses page. I got here just by going on the left-hand side of the screen. And here's where I can create my new courses. So I can I'll create a new one called custom course. And when I click create new course, you'll see that I have two options. The first option is to use a CodeHS template, which is probably what the majority of teachers will do. And you'll be able to use any of the courses from our course catalog and customize your course from there. So you'll have the list of all the modules that are included in that course, but also have the ability to add in your own content. We also have the ability to start from scratch. So if you're an advanced teacher, you just have a ton of material that you want to include, or you're teaching a class that's separate from CodeHS, maybe that we don't have the curriculum for yet, you're able to create that empty course from here. When I create the course template, you'll see I have the option to choose any of these courses that we have. But for now, I'll use one of the courses that I've already created, which is a course CodeHS template that we have, the Intro to JavaScript course. As I'm going through this, also feel free to write any questions that you have in the chat, and we will share any resources and try to answer any questions that you do have. So this is my assignments page for that course that I created, the Intro to JavaScript course. And you'll see that I have all these modules in my course. Inside each module are lessons, and inside of those lessons are the activities. You know the typical flow of a lesson where we have a video, a quiz, examples, and exercises. But this can, of course, be customized however you'd like. So the first thing that I'll touch on is actually creating your own module. The way that you can do this easily from this page is by going to Add on the top right of the screen and clicking Module. You can also do this by lesson and put that in an existing module, or assignment and put that in any lesson, but you'll always need to have a module to have all of those lessons or assignments in. So I'll start by creating a module. You can create this for any reason that you want. Maybe you have a topic that you want to cover. Or for example, maybe I'm starting my school year and I want to create a welcome module. I want to have students introduce themselves and I want to place that all in CodeHS. So I can choose an image. And for this one, I'll put a little waving emoji because I'm welcoming them in. And then I can create that module. You'll see that this is at the bottom of my course. I probably don't want the welcome module at the end of the course. So I can scroll up and click this edit button to reorder. And I can move that to the top of my course. So now that's here, but we don't have any lessons or any activities in here. So I can start by adding a new lesson. The first one can be introduce yourself. And maybe I'll make another lesson called CodeHS Scavenger Hunt, because I want to make sure that my students are understanding the CodeHS platform, and we do have a playlist for that. So now within my lessons, I can create assignments. So I can click Add New Assignment. And then all of the assignment types will populate from here that you have access to creating. I'll go over what all of these are, but I'll also have a chance to actually demonstrate how all of them work. So a coding exercise is an open-ended sandbox style coding project. So this is if you have any assignment that you want to prompt students with, but there's no auto grader. It's really just open-ended, and they can create whatever project they'd like based on the prompt that you give them. You can create a multiple choice quiz. You can create a practice problem, which actually can include an auto-graded portion if you create your own test cases. You can embed a video from either YouTube or Vimeo. You can pull in an article or lecture notes. You can put a free response question, or you can also embed an activity from another site. So for the purposes of this one, I made an introduce yourself lesson. So I'll start off with a free response so that I can have students introduce themselves with a free response prompt. So I'll just click plain text for this. Thank you, Ebony, for putting in an assignment, or sorry, an article that we can all reference. So for this one, I'll name it, "Who are you?" or "What is your name?" or whatever it is. So your prompt can be, "Tell me about yourself," and whatever you want in that prompt. And then you do have the ability to configure this assignment, whether you want it to currently be available to your students or not, if there's a due date, if you want it to be graded. This one, I might not want to be graded because it's really just for fun to get to know them. And then I can save it. And when I exit out of here, it will populate in my lesson. If I want, I can also preview this so you can see what it looks like. And any free response, just like any of the assignments that you create, will actually populate the same way that any of the assignments would on CodeHS. Students wouldn't even know that you created that here. I'll add another assignment. One of the other options I gave was a video. So maybe you want to create a video to introduce yourself to your students. So all you need to do is click video, meet your teacher. I have this awkward video of myself that some of you might have received, but I can take this YouTube link, put it right into the URL, put a description if I'd like, save that. Same idea where you can add the, if it's available or if it's locked, a due date, a grade. I don't want this in my gradebook either. And I'll save that. You could have previewed it, and that's also located in this lesson. Maybe I added these in the wrong order. I might want the video prior to the free response. And so what I can do, and you can do this with any CodeHS lesson or activity, is click these three dots and then move it up. So now it is where I want it, meet your teacher, and then a free response question of, "Who are you?" There also is the ability to pull in materials from any portion of CodeHS, and we'll be going through a lot of those today as well. One option is we do specifically have a CodeHS scavenger hunt, and that can be found in our playlist bank. So if you go up to the toolbox at the top, this has a ton of tools that you might want to reference. You might create your own favorites if there are specific sections of CodeHS that you're most interested in. You'll also see that there are recent pages that you've been to that you can access again. And under Create, you'll see Playlist Bank, Problem Bank, and Quiz Question Bank. So Playlist Bank, what a playlist is, it's essentially a module that a teacher has created. So it's a module that consists of activities. So if I open up this playlist bank, it will take me to this page where I can search for a specific playlist. Maybe I want to specify what programming language it is and an idea of a title. So in this case, I know that I want to look for the scavenger hunt. So I can search scavenger, filter, and this CodeHS scavenger hunt activity appears. So I can either assign this entire module into or this entire playlist into my course by clicking assign and then choosing that course. I know that right now I'm in my demo intro.js section, and I can choose these settings again, assign it, or, and I'll go to that course in a minute, I can open this up and I can assign any of the individual assignments in there. So if I go back to my assignments for this page and I refresh the page of the course, you'll notice that anything you add when it's its own module will show up at the bottom of the page. So here is the scavenger hunt activity at the bottom of the page. And I can go ahead and click edit again and move this up Or if you remember, we created this lesson, the CodeHS scavenger hunt. I can either take any of these activities and click these three dots and move it into the lesson above, which would be the CodeHS scavenger hunt. Or I can actually take this whole lesson and bring it into this module. So I can click these three dots, move to module, and choose welcome. Now, of course, I probably don't want both of these, so I can then click these three dots and click remove. But just so I can show you how the other option would have worked is if I just wanted a few of these, I could click the three dots, move to lesson, and move it into the other lesson that we have up here. If I want to just get rid of this whole lesson because it's being repeated, maybe I'll move this one back down. Or I'll just delete it for now. I can click these three dots and remove that entire lesson. The other thing you could have done from here, from this playlist page, is actually just assign whichever assignments that you want. So maybe I only wanted the course layout. I can click that plus sign, choose the course, and then choose whichever lesson it is. So if I want it to go right into here, I can assign that directly there, and it will go into my course. I'll pause for a second just in case you all have any questions. Feel free to write them in the chat or in the Q&A. And this is now an empty module, so I can go ahead and use the three dots again and click remove. So now I have this awesome lesson that's custom made. I have this lesson, introduce yourself, and the CodeHS activity. And students won't even notice that these were teacher created. It will look like any other CodeHS module or lesson or assignment would look like to them. So that was definitely a fun one. That's really to show that you can create any type of module that you'd like, not coding related just yet. So I will also create a module that is coding related so that you can see how that might look. So again, I can go to this plus sign, the add button on the top right of the screen, create a new module. Maybe I'll call this practice material. And I'll pick another fun icon of a smile. Do exercises from other courses show up in the playlist bank? Good question. I think Ebony is typing an answer, but I can also kind of touch on this. So exercises from other courses could show up there, but not necessarily. We do have a way that you can pull material from other courses directly, and that's from this page, and that's what I will also show you next. I can actually skip to that if it's easier now. So I created this practice material. Again, I'll probably want to edit this and move it up. Right now, I'm just moving it here so that you all can see it better on my screen, but I might want to move it here. What I can do is also on this add button, we have the blank options, which are the blank modules, lessons, and assignments. And we also have existing material. So the playlist bank is more for materials that teachers have created. Some of them are going to be materials that CodeHS team has created. So if you notice, this CodeHS scavenger hunt activity was actually created by me, but that's not always the case. So as you're going through that playlist bank, you'll see a mix of different activities. If you want to get the existing CodeHS material that we've created from other courses, you can click this add button, CodeHS content under existing. And then here's where you can pull from any of the courses that we have. So maybe you are teaching JavaScript and you want to introduce them to a little bit of Python. So I could go in and get it from there. I also know teachers who, especially with all the use of the internet these days, they want to have some digital citizenship and cyber hygiene materials in their courses. So they would search for that here. We have this digital citizenship course, and digital citizenship and cyber hygiene is the first module option. You can either select the entire module, you can also select the entire course, or you can go in and select specific lessons that you want to include. So maybe you don't want all of it there. Maybe you want everything minus the quiz at the end, and then you can go ahead and assign this. For the purposes of this, I will just keep the first 2 lessons. And you'll notice that if I click any of the lessons, it will also be brought in with the module. So it can stay that way. You can also remove them and move them into different lessons. So I'll go ahead and assign this and then view these assignments in my course, which really just refreshes the page and shows me where those assignments live. So now you'll see these are at the bottom of the page. I can again click edit and move them up. And I can either keep them as their own module, or maybe as a part of my welcome module, I want to introduce them to digital citizenship and cyber hygiene. So what I could do is either move the entire lessons. So these 3 dots again, move to module, and then move them up to welcome. And move them up this way. Or maybe I want to add a new lesson and it's digital citizenship. And then I can move any of the assignments into this lesson if I want. So if really all I want here is the video, maybe a free response, I can take this video, these 3 dots again, and move it to another lesson. And that will populate once I refresh the page, since I just created that lesson. I hope that answers that question. If not, feel free to share a follow-up in the chat. And thank you all for participating and introducing yourselves and asking these great questions. So now I moved these lessons out of this module, so I can go ahead and just remove this module unless I wanted to add new lessons to it. So now I have this practice material. You have a couple ways of adding practice material, actually a lot of ways of adding them. So I am here to show you all of those ways. And if you have specific questions or specific things, like I know some people are specifically interested in the APCSA FRQs, that's something that I'll show you how you can add here. But anything like that, you're welcome to write in the chat and let us know. For now, I will create a new lesson called Practice Lesson 1. And then within this lesson, I will click Add New Assignment, or what I could do is go to this Add button and then specifically click Assignment and then choose where I want it to go. So here I could choose whichever module, maybe it's the practice material one, Practice Lesson 1, and I can call this one Quiz. So here I'll create a quiz for them. Create that. And these are all going to be multiple choice. So here I'll choose quiz. And you can title it whatever you'd like. Maybe it's quiz, maybe it's something else. And now I can create a new question. My question will be, what is your teacher's name? And I can put my name or something else. And then you'll just want to choose the correct answer so that they know, or so that CodeHS knows which one to grade as the correct answer. You can put as many options as you'd like here, but I'll just put 2 and then click create. And now that has become a quiz question. I can also create new questions or edit this existing question from this pencil. I also have these same options here, like I can configure whether it's available or locked. I can choose the points it's out of, the due date. If you have grading categories set up, you can choose one of those, and then you can decide whether or not it's in your gradebook. Luckily, the quizzes are all auto-graded, so you don't need to decide whether it is or is not. And these will go directly into the gradebook if you keep that checked off. So now I'll save this, and that will populate as a quiz. If I ever want to edit that, I can click this edit button, and it will take me right back into this edit modal. A couple of other assignment types that we have directly from here. One that we mentioned before was the coding exercise. So this is, that open-ended sandbox style program. You can choose whichever language that you are working with and create the sandbox program from there. For this example, I will create one with Carol using JavaScript. And I can name the activity, maybe it's Carol practice, put a description, have Carol drop 2 tennis balls and face north. If you teach Carol, you might understand that. If not relevant to this, but you can put whatever type of description that you like. You can then put starter code. So if you want students to start out with certain code in their editor, you can put that here. Maybe you want to give them the outline of a function, or maybe you want to just leave a comment here. Make sure you're leaving comments if that's something you're trying to ensure that they're doing during class and you want to give them a quick reminder there. And then you can save that starter code so that they see it. You can also create a solution code. And in this assignment, the coding exercise, this is really just for you to reference. It won't be auto-graded or anything like that. But when you're looking at the student's editor, you'll be able to reference the solution that you have put in this assignment. I know it's kind of challenging in this environment to create a solution code and know exactly what it is. So if you want, something that I always would do is go into my sandbox and create it there so that I can run it, play around with it, and make sure that's the solution that I want. Then I can configure this again and save that. And that will populate in this practice material as well. The next type of assignment I will create is the practice problem. Teachers really enjoy practice problems because this is similar to the idea of the coding exercise, but you actually can use an auto grader and you're able to provide test cases yourself or create them so that the system can check the work instead of you needing to go in and do that. So the only places or languages that these are available in are JavaScript, Python, and Java. And you'll need to have either a method or a function in that code. So here I can do an example in JavaScript. And I'll call this practice problem. I will need to choose a topic. So the topic will be whatever topic you are working on or whatever you'd like it to be. It won't actually impact the code though, or anything like that. You can give instructions here, continue. And here's where you'll have the solution code. This is another example where you can go into your sandbox and kind of play around with that and make sure that what you have as the solution code is working. You will want to create your function or create your method from here. And we have an example or a sample function here for you to use. And that's the one that I'll be working with. So it's a function that says hello name, and then they want to return hello plus whatever the name is. Now here's where I can add the test cases. In this case, I might test out hello with specific names like Carol, and I can try Sarah. And so what this will do is allow the students to see as they are working through this problem, is their function working with my provided test cases? So does hello Carol work if Carol was going to be the name? You can decide by default, the test cases are not hidden. So students can see them and can see if they are working or not. If you like, for any reason, you can hide the test cases. This could be maybe toward the end of the year when you're trying to challenge them to figure it out on their own without the support of test cases. but you can keep them unhidden too, and you can always remove them here as well. Then I can save and continue, choose those same options, and then I will preview this one so you can see what it will look like, but it will populate in my lesson. And now if I go to that practice problem, you'll see that the function is here that it started with. And if I check for the test cases, I haven't actually done anything to this problem yet or created the proper solution. So it's running my test cases and it knows that we haven't quite used the correct code to get these test cases to work. So if I were to actually create this function on my own and return everything correctly, then these test cases would appear to work. So that's a nice, simple way to create practice problems that will actually do the auto grading for you, or just have the ability to kind of have students see if their code is working off the bat. So that's how you create a practice problem. We also do have a whole section on CodeHS that includes practice problems, meaning these problems that are written in Java, in JavaScript, in Python, and they have auto graders attached to them. So this is where you can find the practice problems up here on practice. You can find them up here, and your students can actually find them up here as well. So you can have your students complete them on their own. And that's nice because if you're teaching an AP class maybe, and you just have students who have extra time and want to work through them, they can work through them. But you also have the ability to assign them. So I can take this whole module and click these 3 dots and assign. And then choose a course. I'll choose that same demo course and the section that I'm working in. I can choose my settings and then assign it there. And I'll open that course so it refreshes. And I can also take these specific activities and assign them as well. So I don't need to include the entire module. If I assign this whole box, that will assign the entire module. If I assign a specific activity, that will just assign this one activity. And so here I'll be able to choose the course. Oh, this is already assigned in that course, but I will choose this functions, creating functions, click assign. I can choose that demo section that I've been working in. And then I can choose where I want the activity to go, in what lesson. So I'm going to put it in practice lesson 1 that we have in my practice material module that I created. And again, I can keep this as auto graded because it does have the test cases and the auto grader. And I can click assign. And now I will open up this course. That will refresh the page, and you'll notice a few things. The assignment that I just assigned is showing up right here in my lesson. Practice lesson 1, creating functions is right here. And then at the bottom of the page, I also have this basics level 1. That's that whole module that I assigned. So I can move that again, click edit, and move it to the top. And if I wanted to, I could also just take this whole lesson, click the 3 dots, and move it into my practice material folder. So that's a great way to keep everything together so you don't have a bunch of modules at the end of your course, but instead you have all of these lessons that are a bunch of different activities. And then I can go ahead and remove this module. So that's how you can pull in that practice material. If you are using CodeHS Pro, you will have the ability to go into your course settings and your due date and access controls or your is assigned settings, and you can unassign certain modules. So if this practice material is only for the students who are moving ahead and need extra work, you can make sure to unassign it for the other students and only assign it for certain students. Good question. This in general, all of this is available on regular or just CodeHS free plan. You can access all of this. The only thing that you wouldn't be able to do on free that I just mentioned is the course settings and locking down materials. But on the free plan, you do have access to all of our materials, all of our curriculum, and you can create your own assignments that way. So I'll go back into this lesson and click Add New Assignment. And let's see which ones we haven't spoken about yet. So we went through the coding exercise, the open-ended exercise, a quiz for multiple choice questions, practice problems where you can create the auto grader or you can create the test cases. You can pull in a video by using that link from YouTube or Vimeo. We don't need to go through adding the article or lecture notes, but those are things you can do. Free response I showed where you could create the, you could create any sort of open-ended free response question. This is also good for do nows and exit tickets. So maybe I want to create a do now or an exit ticket in my practice problem section. I can again choose plain text. And so if you want your students to start the class with this do now, you can create it. It's also good for reflection activities. If at the end of the class, you want to just make sure that they are understanding everything that was spoken about, you can configure or you can just save that. Okay, actually, that's one thing that is not available on the free plan is when we are adding these assignments, some of the configure settings will not be free, but those will be indicated by Pro. So you won't be able to go in and decide if it's available or not. Everything by default will be available, but you can create the activities and use them as anyone would. So this is a do now. I probably don't want it at the end of the lesson. So I can click these three dots again and click move up and keep clicking that until I get to the top of this lesson so that that's where students will start off when they go to this lesson. Then the final type of assignment that we haven't spoken about yet is embed. Embed is great if you use any other public websites where you've found some good activities, you can embed those. I know some teachers who also will create their own Google Slides and they can embed them here. So instead of you needing to use multiple websites and move around to multiple places, you can really bring everything in here. I can call this Google Slides. And then on my Google Slides, I can publish this, get an embed code, paste it here, and then that will populate for students just as anything else would. And then that will show here. And you'll notice too, next to this practice problem, we do actually have a problem guide for it because this was a CodeHS created activity rather than a teacher graded activity. And so now these are all available in my course. A couple of other ways that you can bring in material. The last option on this add button is a Sandbox program. So if you haven't had a chance to use the Sandbox is a really great place for you to explore, for your students to explore. They can go in on their own and create their own programs, or you can assign them programs to create. That's a whole different webinar though. But what you can do is if you create a Sandbox program, and maybe it's a program that you really like, it's an exemplar program, it's an example that you'd like to share with your students, you can go ahead and click this Sandbox program, choose one of the programs that you have created. Maybe mine's this Carol program, and I can either show it as an example or as an exercise. If it's an example, students will be able to run the code and step through the code and everything like that, and they won't need to make any changes to it in order to submit it. It's just an example for them to walk through. Or you can create an exercise where they actually might need to or would need to add things to it based on what you're looking for. So I can just click any of those, choose where I want to put it, and then that will populate in my lesson as well. Then some other places you can pull from in the toolbox under Create. We mentioned the playlist bank where you have playlists that teachers have created which are modules consisting of activities. But then you also have the problem bank, which are just individual problems that teachers have created. And I'll open that up in a new tab here. So here you'll also be able to filter and find problems. The difference here is that as opposed to a whole playlist of activities, it's just one individual activity. So I can filter by maybe it's an exercise, an example, or quiz or practice. I can choose the programming language, what the programming type is, and then I can view these. So one that looks pretty cool to me is this Mad Libs assignment that's written in Python 2. And before I assign it to my students, I can go ahead and try it in the editor, which is great to just make sure that you have that. I can also, copy this activity to a playlist or Sandbox so that you can make edits to it. Or I can just take it as is because I like it, and I can click assign and choose the course that I want to put it in and the section, and then choose a lesson where I want that to appear. So I can put that also in my practice lesson 1. So that was the problem bank. Then we also have a quiz question bank, which is a place dedicated specifically to quiz questions. Actually, majority of these, or a lot of them, have been created by CodeHS team members, which is great. John Kelly works for CodeHS. Team CodeHS, of course, is CodeHS. Calvin does too. So we have a bunch here that you can add to existing quizzes, and you can put in your, or add to your created quizzes that you have in your assignments. Something else I've gotten questions about is the APCSA FRQ Center. So this is specific to the APCSA course, but we do have this FRQ Center where we have playlists. If you are curious where these might belong in your course, you can check out the syllabus for this course. But one thing you can do here is just take the playlist, click this button here next to any of the FRQs. And then the same way that we assigned the scavenger hunt playlist is how you can assign this. So either you can assign this entire playlist and this will show up as a new module in your course. I can choose my course and make sure it's in the right section and then assign that there. Or if I wanted to, I can just assign specific assignments there. But for these FRQs, you probably would want to include the entire playlist, and I can show you how that will then populate in my course. I know there's so much on CodeHS, so it's nice to continue to learn the new additions and just new abilities to do things on here, but I'm glad that you learned something new about your class, and hopefully that will be helpful. So you'll see here now I have this FRQ that was added to the end of my course. I can keep it here. I can also, I'll show a new example where I could add a new module that's going to consist of all my FRQs. I don't have any additional images to add, so I'll just create it with no image so you can see what that looks like. It will be this computer icon, and I could take this whole lesson and then move it into the, oh, I need to refresh the page again. Sorry about that. Refresh the page, and then I can move that lesson into my FRQ module that I have. So I can go to these 3 dots on the lesson, move it into FRQs. And now I have nothing in here. I can just go ahead and remove that module again. And now I have this list of FRQs that I can continue to add to as the year goes on, or I can add them right now. If I wanted to go back into that FRQ page, I could do that. Great. And then the last place that I can bring you to is my Create page. You can find that on the left-hand side of your screen under Create, or you can also go into the toolbox and see that up here, Create. And here you'll find a couple of things. One is your playlists. So I know we had shown you the playlist bank. This is where teachers create those playlists that actually appear in the playlist bank. If you want, you can create your own playlist. You can call this one Sarah's playlist. I'll create it. And then I'll be able to add new activities here. The nice thing about creating a playlist from here is now you'll have this playlist that lives in your Create tool, and you can then assign that playlist to any of the courses that you create in the future or any of the sections that you're teaching with. So you'll see if I click Add New Assignment, all of the same options will populate here. Then if I go back into my playlist page, you'll also notice, my Create page, you'll also notice that every assignment that I've created, the ones that I just did, are actually going to appear here. So any of the assignments you create on your assignments page will show up under my assignments. And this is great because now I created this Meet Your Teacher. Maybe I want to put this in another module in another course. Probably not, because I don't need to share that video with everyone, but you could click these 3 dots and then either add it to a different playlist that you're creating or click Assign and assign it to a specific course. It's already in my intro course, so maybe my Python course with one of those sections that I have and into one of the lessons that I have here. Probably not functions or anything like that or the final exam, but if there was one that it fit into, I could place it into this course and this section. You can also create assignments from here if you would prefer to create assignments that actually don't live in your section. You can just start by creating a new assignment, and then in the future, you can go ahead and assign those into any of the courses that you teach. Are there any questions? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that some teachers who are using free use this option. Like if they have a test that they're going to create and they don't want students to see it yet, you can create it from this page and then wait to assign it until the day you're going to get it.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Yeah, so if you are using the free plan, you do have access to creating the assignments from here. And that's great because then, because you don't have the ability to lock and unlock assignments, you can just keep it here until you're ready to assign it into your course for your students to complete. Okay. Great. So we talked about creating and bringing in your own content and pulling material from CodeHS. We've had a couple questions so far come in, but feel free to write any additional in the chat. And in the meantime, some upcoming webinars that we do have, if you're teaching APCSP, that one's coming up, tools for tracking progress on Pro, using CodeHS for in-person and virtual learning, and easy ways to provide feedback on CodeHS. And you can find these on codehs.com/freepd. You can also find any of the past recorded webinars on codehs.com/webinars. So you can reference any of those that we've had. And we are just about ending the webinar, but thank you all so much for joining. And we hope that this has helped you and will inform you.